Hi guys, hope you're well. Thank you to everyone that might be tuning in at the moment. One of the things I was very keen to do when I started the kind of Growth Strategy Roadmap podcast and live stream was to kind of talk to interesting people that've got really kind of good stories to tell, people that would be able to share knowledge, which actually helps either your career or your kind of business. And then actually when lockdown kind of happened, the whole concept of actually trying to learn to live stream, all the complexities of actually trying to make it work. And today's an interesting one because it's the first one trying to interview 3 people or 2 people at the same time. And it just gets a whole lot more complicated at my end, but we'll kind of do our best. But basically Rob and Kennedy, who I will introduce you to, are real kind of experts in their field. But not only that, they've also got some interesting kind of backgrounds and other passions, which we'll touch on as well. So I'm going to bring the guys in and then hopefully we're going to speak for kind of 30-40 minutes. If you've got any questions, you can drop it in the chat. And then afterwards, this gets kind of cut up and then goes onto YouTube and it'll go onto the iTunes store, Spotify, Google and stuff as a podcast as well. Okay. So hi guys, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Hey,
hello.
Thanks for having us.
No, thank you for coming. I must admit, I normally do a whole segment about how do we know each other. And actually the truth for me was, well, we're both speakers at the marketing meetup. You spoke, I think, the one after me. But actually it was just kind of in the Northeast tech kind of scene that we spotted the guys with the colourful hair around. And it's, but like over time you get to know, different people and you get to meet their partners and you just get a different feel. And it was just when you find the different personalities in the region, it's always great to kind of talk to them. And especially when we don't always get the chance to do that. I thought this was a great chance to kind of catch up. So who wants to go first? Would you like to tell people about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so we have a bit of a weird background. I'm actually a comedy stage hypnotist originally. So I've spent the last 18 years traveling around the world, hypnotizing people to do a comedy show and making them do crazy things. It's how we became friends, actually. Kennedy's an onstage mind reader. Anyone listening from the US would know that as a mentalist. And basically uses psychology, understanding people, reading people, body language, etc., to make it look like he can read their minds. And we've both been doing that for a long time. We met at a conference for magicians of all things, and became pals. Became pals through that. That's like our background, and that's kind of one of the things we do.
No, fascinating. And I must admit, it's one of my later questions, but actually now we've kind of touched on it. How did you both get into that? So how did you become a mind reader? Because I've read Darren Brown's books and that kind of thing, but likewise, well, actually, we'll touch on that one first, if that's cool. How did you get into what you do?
It's a weird one. I really don't know. I remember I was always interested I think I was a paranoid kid and I was always interested in manipulating my parents. So I remember there was this Christmas. It was Boxing Day, so it was the day after Christmas, and my mum said to me, "Kennedy, will you move all your toys from underneath the Christmas tree and put them in your bedroom?" And of course, stubborn little Kennedy was like, "I'm not doing that. I'm going to try and manipulate my mother at this point." So I thought, I'll know what I'll do. I said these words. I said, I could, but can I just put them on the table like you did last year? And my mum, of course, said yes. Now, if you actually, years later, when I'm sort of analysing how I ended up doing this mind reading and influencing people, you realise that's probably the first time that I was actually manipulating somebody else's mind and how they think, because there's no way my mum could have disagreed with that. She couldn't have said, "No, don't do what I did last year," because us humans can't disagree with ourselves. We have this rule called commitment and consistency, which means when we make a decision, even if later we find out it was a bad decision, we will still find a way of post-justifying it.
It's one of Cialdini's 6 universal principles of social influence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's Cialdini's,
Yeah, I must admit, I never know how to, because I'm from Liverpool, I never know how to say posh names, but I'll go. So one of my kind of questions was actually how, both in my head, it was more to do with stage presence kind of thing, but almost have you felt that your stage careers have helped you in business? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I mean, I know for a fact I was like a really shy, terrified, quiet kid. Talking to people terrified me. I was the kid who would hide behind my mum's leg if there was a stranger at the door. I was really, really scared of interaction. And even at school, found that really, really difficult. And I think so as an entertainer, you're thrust into the spotlight. You have to learn to think on your feet very quickly, especially in our line of work. You have to, like, everything that happens every night on stage is totally different. So you have to be able to think on your feet. You have to be able to react fast. I think all of those things are real skills that you have to be able to pull into business as well.
Because so I've seen you both present, and again, it's a funny one because you actually saw me the month before, and it's that balance of where if you're on stage in front of, I guess, 100 people, the audience can smell fear, and they can it's just any quiver in the voice and they'll kill you. And it was really interesting to kind of watch you guys. In some ways it was an act because you were so well rehearsed, if that makes sense. But I could just imagine see how those kind of skill sets, which take years to practice, actually would, play off and almost, really benefit someone in business that has to either sell a product in person or like on a stage.
Totally.
Definitely. I mean, I think one of the things you have to do is if you're going to be a more confident presenter, whether you're doing a pitch presentation or if you're presenting in front of potential customers, or if this is to the board or you're trying to get investment, whatever the heck the reason that you've got to present to a bunch of people, if you're sharing your knowledge in your sector, one of the things you have to really do is you have to have incredible levels of trust. I absolutely have to trust that whenever I stop speaking and making my point, Rob's going to pick up. And that's going to happen. And he has to absolutely trust that as soon as he finishes talking, I'm going to continue the story. And one of the big things we have to do, it's funny, people often talk about, we look very rehearsed. We don't script our presentations, but what we do is we have this sort of rule. I have a bunch of rules. One of them is, if there's two of you, it's much more challenging to put a presentation together because you've got to share that voice. But the other thing you have to do is make sure you don't end up doing what a lot of dual presentations do, or team presentations even worse, is they end up going around in circles because they're repeating each other. So they're sort of going, yes, and yeah, and this is not going anywhere. What you actually have to do is allow yourself to say, that person was in charge of that point. They made that point. And even if I think I want to clarify it because there was something different, you can't. You have to move on. So you have to be progressing the narrative. You have to be progressing the message at all times. And I think a lot of presentations really suffer from, this is actually not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. I actually think that's a really good point, because in the past I've been asked to judge MBA student presentations where you've got a group of 6 and they all feel they have to say something, and it's like, now John, it's your turn. And Kimber, and it's just, you just want to die. And it's just look, just pick one person and just nail it. But it's interesting. But, that happens through all kind of different types of careers. And then one of the things which kind of came to mind, because I actually looked into it and I couldn't find any, was almost, although I'm not funny, I can see the benefit on almost training and practicing to do stand-up comedy as a way to just practice stage presence for business stuff. And I actually Googled it. I looked to see if the Stand Comedy Club in Newcastle do anything. Someone put me in touch with Alfie Jerry that we all know. And I think someone used to do it back in the day. But I think there's a real genuine niche for the ability to teach. I know there's people that do business presentations and coach you how to present. But I'm almost taking the craft of entertaining is what you two do, and then applying it back. So I was always kind of fascinated, almost when I knew I was going to get you on to kind of ask you the question. But one of the things that this is it's a business related kind of podcast and show and stuff, is that we talk about people's businesses, what they do, how they work, dig into it a little bit. And then really, where people have got an area of expertise, which you do, really kind of just ask questions and just explore it a little bit, just for the audience, it really kind of jumps out, if that makes sense. So would you like to tell the guys about either your business or businesses?
Sure, let's do that. Well, I think the thing, what's really interesting here, it's sort of like two different things. One of the things that we're known for is we teach and we coach and we have programs which help people do email marketing, but not the old tired stuff, not spamming. We're talking about permission-based email marketing, the stuff that we used to call a newsletter, but it's really not a newsletter. Email marketing is not a replacement for letters from your gran. That's not how it works. We teach ways to use our psychology-based approach to have more of an impact being entertaining, using psychological impact, and doing email marketing that people enjoy receiving. And not only do they enjoy receiving, but you get replies to your email marketing from people saying, I really love your emails. Like, that happens to us every single day. It happens to our students every single day. So we're not special despite how we might look. We are not real superheroes, is what I'm saying. Because our brand is Email Marketing Heroes. And the idea is we're trying to reinvent, and we are turning email marketing on its ear. That's the whole point of it. So we do that through a bunch of things. We have a membership called the League of Extraordinary Email Marketers. We have a bunch of training programs. We have a podcast. So you probably like podcasts if you listen to this and watching this. So we have the weekly podcast, the Email Marketing Show, where we talk about an element of email marketing every single week and do other ridiculous, slightly entertaining things. So that's part of our brand. And the reason that brand exists is actually to do something unusual, which is to generate prospects at a profit for another business. Rob?
Yeah, so a few years ago, we founded a software platform called Response Suite. And it's a survey platform that's built not just to collect feedback from your customers, but actually to directly generate sales. And we found out very, very abruptly that we know nothing about how to sell software. And so we really struggled in that business for quite some time. And we were heading towards a massive cliff that we were about to drop off the end of, like lemmings, just marching blindly towards the end of this cliff, and rapidly realized we had to solve that problem. And our solution was to pivot the business dramatically and figure out, okay, great, if we can't get customers cheaply enough that we can grow this business and scale it from our own pockets, then we need to find out how we can generate customers. And that's how the Email Marketing Heroes brand was born.
So I know if I unpick it, just because it's fascinating, and likewise anyone that watches or listens, I think it's almost trying to understand it. So right. That you had a startup, and then was it just or you have a startup, and there was the two of you that started it together?
Yeah, so two of us co-founded it, and then 3 members of staff.
And then what was the original plan for what you wanted to do or sell?
So we thought that we've been able to sell stuff online for 15 years with real success. And we thought that actually applying that same principle to software would work quite easily. And it turned out that just wasn't the case, because we created a software that solved a problem that all businesses had but didn't know they had. And if they did know they had that problem, they didn't know that a survey was going to be the solution to it. They were looking in the wrong place. So we had to deal with education as to why you've got the problem, education as to why this is the solution to the problem, and then education that our platform was the one to buy. So there was a lot of steps to take in order to make that happen. And the entire company was bootstrapped. It was entirely from our own pockets. And so we didn't have endless amounts of investment cash or any of that stuff. And so we thought, it's a great idea. Every business needs this. We'll put it on the internet and we'll be millionaires by, next Tuesday or, similar. And as I said, it turned out once we started marketing it and doing all the stuff that's worked in the past when we've tried to sell, or when we have sold online courses and programs and events and tons of other stuff, all of that stuff applied to the software business just didn't work. And so that was the original ambition was, we'll put this software out, everyone will want it, and then that'll be great.
And so was the software email marketing related?
So it's just our survey platform. So it works alongside email marketing, but it's not an email marketing platform. No,
because actually with when you gave your talk at the Marketer Meetup, actually it was give or take 40 minutes because the other guest didn't turn up. And actually you did a really good job. But actually, do you want to almost explain what's so good about it and why it works? Does that make sense?
Yeah, cool. Sure. So do you want to take this?
Yeah, I can. I mean, no, if you're on a run, dude, you carry on. I'm going to sit here and enjoy the sun.
Thanks, mate. So Response Suite is a survey platform that is designed to collect feedback from your customers or potential customers. So you can ask them questions like you would expect from a survey, and they fill in the answers, and that's great. But off the back of them filling out that survey, you can make pretty much anything happen. So rather than just the way surveys have been done for years is typically you sell a thing, you deliver the thing, and then you send out a survey saying, how did we do? And a handful of people will feel ambushed into filling out the survey, even though they don't want to. And it's like 29 pages long and a million questions to a page. And then at the end of it, once a year, once a fortnight, whenever they feel like it, somebody from the business will look at a pie chart and say, oh, yeah, 87% of people were happy again. Off we go. And it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything to the individual person who filled out the survey. Like, I once went and stayed in a hotel, had the worst stay I've ever had in any hotel ever, complained to the manager, got a refund, went home, got a survey, filled in the survey and rated it 0, 0, 0, 0 out of everything. Really went to town on this survey. Within 2 or 3 days, I get an email from the same chain of hotels. It's a small boutique chain of hotels, offering me the chance to go and stay in a different hotel, completely ignoring the fact I've torn them to bits in this survey. And so that's how surveys have been done for years. So when you build a survey and response suite, instead you take all of that and you plumb it into the rest of your marketing. You plumb it into your email marketing system, into your CRM, into everything else. So that now the minute somebody says that was 3 out of 10 or something, you can now flag them in your CRM as, this person wasn't happy. Make sure we put them into a chain of emails that are designed to fix that relationship. Make sure somebody gives them a call and says, look, I'm really sorry you weren't happy. In other words, every single person who fills out the survey, their next experience with your marketing is completely related to the thing that they said. So if they weren't happy, it follows up with it. If they said they were happy and they're particularly interested in this, this, and this, you follow up with them and talk about those products or services instead.
I do think it's interesting because a lot of so at the moment you've got a lot of companies who are struggling to make money, or the world's changed and we're looking at how do we grow with a leaner team, or how do we generate profit quickly. And for one of the first things we always look at is actually for jobs that you've already bid, and obviously I'm like an engineering type background, so that's where we kind of look at, or for a professional services firm that I work with, it's customers that you've had and lost. You know, the easiest way to grow your business quickly is to almost recapture people that have previously bought your product at some point as well. So I really kind of get what you do and how it works. And again, it's that balance of how it's trying to explain it to a way that a rough and ready Northeast SME will understand and buy into in a way that it's not just a survey. Does that make sense? And almost on the basic level, because I guess is there some sort of automation to it as well?
Yeah, I mean, basically, what happens is when someone completes a survey, you've connected that with your CRM, email marketing system, all that stuff. But also, when they complete that survey, at least three automations can happen at once. The first thing is you can segment them in your CRM. So now you can do that follow-up. So you can follow up about the most relevant product. Or a lot of people use Response Suite for upselling and cross-selling existing customers. They get one product. You send them a survey. If they rate you highly, the next question is, which of these other products would be of interest to you? Yeah. And then you now consult them, because the big reason that customers don't spend money with us or more money with us is because they don't understand all the things you could possibly do for them. And that's a big thing that these surveys really overcome. So the first thing that happens is when somebody fills in the survey and then they hit submit, you segment them in your CRM. So now you can follow up, whether that's manually automated and integrated, sort of version of both. The second thing that happens is because Response Suite integrates with Google and Facebook Pixels, you can now show them the perfect ads. So now to them, you're the person who emails them and they see ads about the only thing they really care about. Because the thing that really matters in marketing, email marketing, advertising, or marketing, is relevance. If a person sees more relevant messaging from you, they're going to buy from you. The third thing that this amazing platform does is when they hit submit, they can then be taken to a different landing page depending on their choices, which offers them the perfect solution. So if they said they really need some new tires, you can take them to the tires page of your website. I don't know why I'm doing car references when I know nothing about cars. This is going to be a laugh, isn't it? If they talk about my door's broken, you can take them to the door part of your website. Or a specific landing page. What now happens is, in the world of CX and customer journey mapping, we talk about these customer journeys. The problem is a linear customer journey is like, I don't even know if it ever existed. And this idea of mapping out a singular customer journey actually makes no sense. So what we talk about instead is a dynamic customer journey. We think of it more, in fact, we think of it exactly like those choose your own adventure storybooks that we used to have. You were reading the book and it would say, if you think he goes to the park, then you turn to page 26. If you think he goes to the hospital, turn to page 42. Your marketing becomes that, where the customer or the prospective customer gets to choose the journey. And then you get to present only things they really care about.
No, I do think it's very good, because one of the big things so I teach people sales as well. And actually you get a lot of not very good salespeople that just don't ask the basic questions. What's important to you? How could it work? What are you interested in? What are you not interested in? And then you take them on that kind of path. And almost, I think, especially at the moment, and people will hate me saying this, but it's both true and it's going to happen anyway, is that if companies are looking to reduce overhead and have a lean business, you want systems like this, which can plug a gap at a lower cost than a person, but actually will probably do a better job. Does that make sense? And then people always hate me because they're like, oh, you're going to cost people jobs. It's like, no, this is going to happen anyway. You just need to get better and smarter, and you grow other
Actually,
parts.
It's not going to cost you jobs. I'll tell you why it's not going to cost you jobs. Because at the moment, without this kind of system in place, people are falling through the gaps. There are people falling through the cracks. And if they weren't falling through the cracks, you'd have more sales prospecting to be doing. So you would actually need a bigger sales team. So we're not talking about doing people out of jobs here. We're actually talking about having more relevant, highly qualified sales conversations where you can basically read someone's mind, because they've told you what their biggest challenge is right now. Mm-hmm. They've told you how urgent it is. They've told you the cost of that problem. Your salesperson can now go in and be more efficient. Yeah. So you can have more salespeople who can do faster sales presentations and sales conversations, because they've already got that information. Because the big thing is, if you're doing anonymous surveys, you can't do anything with that information. Mm-hmm. But the fact that we can identify Steve Pugh's the guy who filled this in, we're going to have a message, we're going to have a meeting with him. Let's have a look. Steve really cares about really nice spectacles. He's really trendy. So we're going to talk to him about really nice spectacles. So when we get there, we don't even need to go, what's important to you about how you look, Steve? Yeah. Because we know that you care about how you look. We know that you work hard on that. And we've already overcome all those things, rather than going, well, he's probably in the 72% who cares about how he looks. We'll go with that, and then find out you're wrong. So that it really powers the sales process. It doesn't replace it. Just before I get off my little high horse and soapbox about this, one of the things we talk about a lot, and this is really important in email marketing, with using surveys, with using marketing systems, is you need to automate the processes, not the relationships. Mm-hmm. And when you automate relationships, that's when all of this falls over. That's when we get frustrated at that stupid chatbot on the water board's website that doesn't even tell you what you want to hear, because it's going, I'm really sorry. We get frustrated because they're automating the relationship, not the process. And that's where the line has to be. I'm going to shut up.
That's fine. Are there any GDPR issues? My wife's a solicitor, so I'm well drilled on that kind of thing. I just didn't know if it ever comes up.
We get asked about it. Obviously, I mean, as a software platform, obviously we are controlling people's data, or we are processing people's data. And of course, we have our own customers' data as well. So it is something we look at a lot. We've been told several times by various different law firms and GDPR consultants that we've gone like over and above what really needs to be done. From our point of view, the way that we recommend most people do it is actually that they run the surveys to the people they've already got data on, and they've already got permission to use that data. So from our perspective, we sit in the middle. You bring your customers in and do all the GDPR stuff to make sure it's okay to email them, and then you send them to our survey, and all we're doing is just separating, segmenting, and tagging them, and then sending them back out the other end again, back into the same system. So from our point of view, most of the time, that's perfectly okay. It would only really be if somebody was running a survey or a quiz as like a front end thing. Obviously, these quizzes are becoming all the rage right now as a front-end lead gen for businesses of all different categories and types. But again, as long as I think, as with any data collection, as long as they know they're going to hear from you, they know what they're going to hear from you about, and roughly how often. Not a lawyer. I think you're probably okay.
No, cool. I appreciate that. It was one of the things that popped to mind when we were talking, so I was going to throw it out. Why not? So one of the key things which I'm keen to ask is almost, so you are business owners. How do you do your own promotion?
So we love to appear on other people's podcasts and live streams and platforms and things like that. I think one of the lessons that we learned very early on is that you have to do what you're good at. So when we first started the business, Kennedy and I said, right, we need to have a blog because businesses have a blog. And so I'll write it this week, and then you write next week, and then I'll write it this week, and then you write it next week. We'll vaguely brainstorm the topics.
And you know what? I loved it on the weeks that Rob was writing the blog. And Rob loved it the weeks that I was writing the blog. That's how that went down.
You could tell whose week it was just by the general mood of the two of us. And eventually we got to the end of it and we thought, you know, we're not awful writers, but we're definitely not good at it either. Like, we're not professional writers. We said, why are we doing this? So we're big fans of doing what you're good at. That's why we have the podcast, the Email Marketing Show, because we like to talk. I don't know if we're good at it, but we like to talk. We like to present. So I said, so that's why we've gone down that route. So I think we do that with all forms of promotion. We said, right, well, in that case, the unfair advantage, I think everyone has to look for their unfair advantage. The unfair advantage that Kennedy and I undeniably have is that we've spent 18 years performing for thousands of people regularly doing a show. And so I think we have to use that opportunity. So anywhere where we can be as our personal brand of Rob and Kennedy, the email marketing heroes, is good. So we love to be inside other people's platforms, doing trainings for people's membership programs and coaching programs and that kind of thing. Obviously our podcast, appearing on other people's podcasts, and all of that we generally talk about. Come and join out, hang out. We've got a free Facebook group people can come and hang out in. And so a lot of our promotion actually just works through that, and it quite organically, those people then become more interested and start inquiring about, well, how can I work with you and what happens next? And that sort of leads the way, really. I think the secret to anything is be really good at what you're good at and do it.
Because I think I noticed, I think it was a tweet. And is it a joint Twitter account as well? I was going to allocate it to one of you, but it's a joint one. And it was to do with, I think there was 5 or 6 different Twitter hours each week. I think it was 1 on Tuesday, 2 on Wednesday, 3 on Thursday, I think. And it was just kind of, you know, obviously Twitter's a big thing for you. But like, out of interest, who is your target customer? Who's your kind of target demographic?
Yeah. So the people we help the most are people who have what you might think of as personal brands, or who are taking expertise and packaging that into something. So we have people who have developed training programs, online courses, masterminds, memberships, coaching programs, those kind of things. So it's people who've got usually quite a small team. So even though we've got some clients, so for Response Week, for example, who are doing, you know, who have a large profit and large turnover in the high tens of millions, but their team's probably 6 people.
Wow.
So yeah, which is great. And this is an American client of ours, but in general, it's people who are selling or promoting their expertise and packaging that in some way, because our approach to doing email is really about sharing pieces of you and sharing stories that people can identify with. Now, big brands do use our techniques. We know they do. But we tend to resonate more and have a lot more strategies and tend to have attracted a lot more personal brands. Although we do have some e-commerce people in there as well. You always have some peripheral people who are absolutely killing it as well. It's really interesting, actually. When we're in our Facebook group, which if anybody's thinking what is it, we named it. We're very clever at names. You know, we've got a podcast called the Email Marketing Show. What should we call our Facebook group? We'll call it the Email Marketing Show Community. Let's call it that. You know, we're really very, very original on names. So when we're in the group, we see people and who are engaged with all of our content, and we're like, okay, what are they doing? And it does tend to be, I would say 70% is that sort of personal brand, expert industry. And then you've got 30% of everything else.
So you, obviously Twitter's massively important to you as well. Like, do you ever pick up the phone and do old school sales approaches as well, or no?
No, not good at it, don't like it, so we stopped doing it.
Now, this sort of brings me on to this point that Rob and I were having we had our strategy day. Every Wednesday is our strategy day. And we were talking yesterday about, actually, email marketing is the wrong word. It's gone so far away from what it used to be. You think of marketing as that marketing element, but actually the proper word for what we do is email sales, because every email we send So every single day, we email 365 days a year. Every single day, we send an email which has a fun, interesting, funny story, which has a moral and interesting thing you can learn from it. And then in 100% of those emails, almost 100, I would say 99% of those emails, there's also a sales offer, a call to action, a direct, come and join our program, The League. Go and buy our list building, how to build your email list program, whatever. So actually what we do is email sales, not email marketing, but we have to call it email marketing. Otherwise people don't know what it is.
No, it makes sense. Because one of the part of the reason why we met, which is actually quite interesting, is that, so I'm a chartered mechanical engineer. If I swiveled my camera around, you'd see my certificates. But it was almost the tech sector and that kind of thing is completely new to me. Like, I didn't know anyone the first time I went to Tusspark. And I try and find the balance between seeing people in person, but then likewise, in the same way that you did, most of my competitors are white male and stale, if you put it that way. So most of them are white males, probably 50 or 60, who would hate the idea of live streaming. They hate social media. They don't like talking about stuff. As where I'm 20 years younger, I don't mind talking. I like talking to people and I like my tech. So why not? I do this because I enjoy it. So I really kind of appreciate what you're doing. And then it's almost funny that what I've been trying to figure out is how you apply this to different sectors, if that makes sense. So my kind of target customer are business owners, independent in the Northeast, kind of 1 to 7 million turnover, SME, generally that actually makes stuff. Because actually that's the problems that I know how to fix better than most people. And I was trying to figure out how does this fit? But actually it still does, because although you might have a higher unit value of a sale, it's how you maintain the relationships with lots of different people. So I was trying to think through how you could apply this to different customers and more kind of my background, but I do kind of still think it works. I am very conscious of your time, so I'm going to kind of keep the ball rolling. For yourselves, what's the dream?
What's the dream?
We've achieved part of the dream. I mean, I'm 33, he's 36. We've achieved part of the dream, which is we've made it this far in our lives without ever having to have a job, which is it's just part of what we do. Never been to a job interview, never flipped a burger, never poured a coffee. When we did our first job interview to hire our first member of staff, the opening question was legitimately, how's this supposed to work? I mean, we took some HR advice first, but that was the first question in the interview. And so we're sort of very much feeling our way through having staff and understanding how to have a bigger business and stuff, because we've always worked for ourselves. We've always had our own business. So genuinely, part of the dream is to be in that situation. One of the reasons why pre-coronavirus and pre-lockdown, we voluntarily made the decision to leave our office and go remote after 4 or 5 years of having an office. We decided to go remote just because it was more freeing, not actually only for us, but also for the staff as well. It meant more flexible working. It meant not sitting in traffic jams on the way into Newcastle. And so we made that decision to go remote early because it was another step towards giving us the freedom that we want to be able to do. If one of us wants to be able to go and fly abroad and just do a show and not think about it, we have the flexibility and the freedom to do that. But I think it's that, and also waking up every day knowing that I'm going to enjoy pretty much everything I have to do that day. Okay, apart from accounts and paying tax and all that stuff, I'm going to enjoy pretty much everything I'm going to do that day.
Kennedy?
Yeah, I mean, we're very much aligned on this. Rob and I are like two sides of the same coin. We think quite differently. Like Rob almost said the same thing. Is I'm kind of like the creative one, and Rob's like the systems one, right? So, but this sort of works perfectly together, but we are very aligned on our on what we want to achieve, and that is never have to get a job and create stuff that's really good. Like as long as we're creating stuff we actually believe in, and we're never forced into a corner where we have to make money, so we have to make some junk product in order to sell it and then just to make a buck, which we've not had to do. So as long as we're
an Amazon driver playing some 90s music really loud outside the window. So I'm sorry, I had to jump in. It was either that or goes into entrance for the next 3 minutes as they deliver a package. So sorry.
I would have enjoyed the entrance, that would have been fine.
No, but I appreciate the answer, because I think this is the one thing that most people, it's not that they get wrong, but they don't actually think about what the dream is and what do they want to do. So for instance, I purposely have made the decision that I never want to employ any other staff, just because I want the flexibility that in 4 or 5 years' time, I can retire, sit on a beach, and just do the stuff that I want to do because I want to do it, without the feeling that I have to earn X amount just to pay their wages and then do this to pay for an office. So I really kind of get what you're talking about. And then one of the things which actually just come to mind whilst we're talking is that you might have seen that I recently got involved with a tech platform in Africa. And what we're looking to do is what's called Ojimi, and it's a different way to do e-commerce. And in Nigeria, the way that people use the internet is completely different to how we currently do in 2020 in the UK. So we're kind of developing that up, because likewise, almost the logistics for how an Amazon type model in the Northeast works is that you have the big super warehouses. They hold 1 million products each. Then you have delivery drivers like the entrance man outside who come, and it all works beautifully. But in certain parts of Africa or different emerging economies, they don't actually, for one, the traffic is horrendous, so it doesn't work. The unit price per customer is much lower, so it's much harder to justify a giant warehouse to build. The countries are so big that you couldn't build enough warehouses, and the current model doesn't work. So what I'm looking at with the guys, it's how can we solve that problem in a different way, which works for the real customers. And it's fascinating, but actually this could play a part as well. But I don't yet know enough about the Nigerian culture relating to email, but I will. And it's for most people, it's how you piece, you hear information, be it on a podcast or a video or whatever, and you just bank it at the back of your mind. And then at a certain point, you might come back to it and think, oh, actually, I'm going to ask those two about how we do this. And for me, that's the big thing about business development and sales. It's how you want to make your offer explicit so people kind of know what they can buy, and then just stay around so that if they want to buy it, you come to mind. Does that make sense? And that's what I think you do very well with the hashtags and the shows and the stuff on stage, and even the kind of interesting look that you both have. If can I ask what hair dye color it is, Rob, if you don't mind me asking?
Red, I think. The hairdresser tells me it's L'Oreal. That's as much as I know.
But my point is, it genuinely works because it makes you distinctive, and it's all part of the brand. I think it's really good. So one of the questions that I ask all of my guests, and I don't know how you want to split that up, or if you both go, whatever. What's the best piece of advice you've ever had?
Business or personal or anything?
Anything.
I think for me, one of the best things, so as a kid growing up, I always thought I was going to be a magician. That's how I actually got into stage hypnosis. I did magic. And I remember when I was growing up, if you think about my Professor Dumbledore was a woman from Whitley Bay in the northeast of England who ran a junior magic section for kids. And she always said to me, she was in her 70s when I was probably 11 or 12. And she said, what you want to do is you want to go to school, you want to go to college, you want to go to university, you want to get a really good degree, get a really good job. And then you can try magic. And if magic and entertainment takes off as a career, brilliant. If it doesn't, which it won't for most, if it doesn't, you've got something to fall back on. So that's what I started doing. I did my A-levels and I got very close to, I got to the point where you have to look at UCAS and deciding what university you go to. Went and looked at a couple of universities, and my dad said to me, don't go to university.
Wow.
Just don't do it. And he said, look, you've got your A-levels. That's the trickier bit to come back and do it later life. You can do it, but that's the trickier bit. You can go to university at any point in your life. You want to be an entertainer, just do that. I think you're wasting your time if you go to university and you're going to rack up loads of debt. And I just think it's a waste of time. And I'm so glad that he gave me that advice as opposed to everyone else in that field who says, no, get a proper job and then have something to fall back on. Because I would have completely changed. I think it would have changed the trajectory of my life somewhat. And I would have wasted my time at uni.
Can I ask, what does your dad do?
He's a computer programmer, software developer.
Oh, so it's a brave but very good. I like your dad. That's not many people would say that. If you're brutally honest, how many parents would say, no, got to go to uni, got to do this?
He said just get on with it. If that's what you want to do.
I love that.
So I'm really glad that happened.
No, I think it's brilliant. And Kennedy?
I think mine was about, I can't remember who it was or when it happened. There was a piece of advice ringing around my head around listening to people's opinions and then deciding what you want to do with them is really important. I think too many people are open to everyone's opinions and go, I've got to do all of these things. And actually, you don't have to. Just because you can do these things doesn't mean you should do any of them. If Britain's Got Talent has taught us anything, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So that's definitely one of the things, is to make decisions on what you actually want to do. Because if you find something that you want to do, then everything becomes easier. The hard stuff becomes much more manageable because you're doing stuff in general. You're doing it for a cause that you care about. So I think that's really important, that you sort of make decisions on the advice that you take, and be choosy over who you take advice from. Because we've sat down and had so many meetings with consultants and coaches who were smashing people, really good people. Can't help us. Can't help us. Just because they weren't right. And finding a good coach is really hard.
No, it's cool. But I think it's that balance almost with age. I know a lot of people that advice gets thrust at them. They didn't ask for it, but gets thrust at them. And it's actually almost with an age thing. So I'm slightly older than both of you, but it's to actually think, you know what? No, I don't accept your comment, but actually have the confidence to stick by it. And I've found that in the past kind of 6 months. But no, I really appreciate that, especially yours, Rob.
I think unsolicited feedback, one of the things that in the entertainment world is really frowned upon. So if you walk off stage and another act's there, they would never dare give you feedback of good, bad, anything unless you ask for it. And I don't know what it is with people thinking they've got the right to share these opinions, because when they do, they're only seeing that website. You know, how many times people give you feedback on your website and you go, well, you don't know where that fits in my sales process. You've got no idea. Yeah. And if I change that, that's all going to break. Or it might be converting beautifully. Or you might have seen a split test. Like, unsolicited feedback is a real bugbear of mine. Stop doing it.
Awesome. And then the other question which I ask, and again to both of you, if you were to give advice to your younger self, and it can be any age, any background, anything you want, what would it be?
I think mine would probably be don't bend over backwards doing everything you think you need to do in order to build a business that one day you'll be free from, because what you'll probably do is you'll probably build a business that can't operate without you in that way. So I remember I would like holding a webinar. I'd hold a webinar or a conference at a time that was like, it was rubbish for me, but it was better for some of the people that might be tuning in. And I would assume that, well, if I did it at a time that's good for me, they probably won't tune in. Whereas later on in life, I found actually if I do it when it's right for me, the people who want to tune in will, the people who don't won't, and that's fine too. They'll watch it back on a recording and that's okay. And the business is perfectly fine. So I think for me, it's understanding that actually you can build a business that begins the way you want it to ultimately be, and that's okay.
Awesome.
For me, it's got to be that if we're at all interested in developing ourselves, we get involved in self-development and we read all this stuff about how we can improve all this stuff we're not very good at. And so what that means is we start focusing on our dips. We start focusing on the stuff that we're not very good at. And that's not healthy. And also, it's not that useful. Instead, if we the advice I would give to myself is, the stuff you're good at, do more of that and become the best in the world. That is your superpower. Do more of it. Become better at it. So pull up your peaks. Don't pull up your dips. That's the advice I would give myself.
No, awesome. Well, gents, I really appreciate your time. I always give all my guests the chance to. Is there anything you want to talk about or plug just before we go?
If anybody wants to talk to hear about how email marketing could work for them, if you're thinking that's all very good for you guys because you're witty or pretty or any of those things, then it's not the second one. And if you want to talk about that kind of stuff and how you might use email marketing and even just get inspired, maybe you've always thought, I don't think email marketing really work for my business. Come and hang out in a group of a lot of people who are doing it and who are having that same challenge and who are working on email marketing. It's a free group. It's on Facebook. Just go to Facebook and look for the Email Marketing Show community. It'll pop up. So join there. If you want to hear Rob and I talk among ourselves and with guests every other week about email marketing, tune into our free podcast, the Email Marketing Show. What else could they do, Rob, if they really
If you want to have a look at Response Suite, you can head over to responsesuite.com. find out all about what we're doing over there. And that's really about it.
Yeah, cool. Because I think with a lot of my audience are, say, traditional manufacturing type industry business owners and stuff, where I genuinely do think there's a gap for what you do and how it can be applied. And actually, just whilst we've been talking, the idea of how we could potentially use something like this for Ojimi, which is a online retail platform, is quite interesting, which I'm going to need to kind of marinate. We have had some comments throughout, but I won't go into them. But I appreciate your time. Rob, I genuinely, I think your dad's awesome. I think he's the star of the show. Even though
your dad's awesome, Rob. You, wow.
But you know,
I'll let him know.
But on the day that people get their GCSE results, including my nephew, you know, there'll be people whose hearts are broken today because they got whatever grades they got. When actually the truth is, with a bit of hard work and whatever you choose to go into, it doesn't matter. So I think it's almost especially relevant today. I've really appreciated your time. I know that you have another show to go on to, so I won't keep you. But hopefully we'll catch up some point soon. And everyone follow these guys on Twitter and all of the other kind of platforms.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, man.
No worries. Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Bye.